Morning, this is Doug.
Good morning. This is Alvin. How you doing, young fella?
I'm doing well, but you're about lunchtime, right?
Yes, sir. And I've already had lunch, sir.
Well, thanks for calling.
Well, thank you, sir, for the great work that you have been doing over the years, sir. First of all, give me a little idea of your background and expertise, Doug.
Well, let's see. I was always involved in training from a young age, so I've always been an educator and leading YMCA groups in high school all the way through college. Actually, my goal was to lead international exchange programs as a YMCA director, and that led me to an internship at Disney, and then my whole life changed. So it's been one of those ways of life. You know, you hit a crossroads, and then you decide to go in a certain direction.
Even though many persons have visited the facilities around the world and many persons admire Disney, why don't you think many persons really embrace the lifestyle and culture and really put it in their own business? Because it's still, a city on the hill in the sense that a lot of businesses admire Disney, but they don't necessarily do Disney.
Well, that's a really interesting question. In fact, when I was doing the research for Disney U, I asked that same question of all the leaders that used to be my bosses at Disney, and they said it's because Disney makes it look so easy. And owners of small businesses or corporations go back and they might apply some of the tactics or strategies of a Disney theme park or a resort, thinking that's going to work, but it's not going to be long-lived without the core values that have to be the foundation upon which anything is built. So one of the ways that I look at it is a lot of people try to slap a coat of paint on a run-down building, metaphorically, using fancy words for guests, customers, employees, but they don't really take care of the foundation of that building, and hence it crumbles.
Because you look at other persons who have tried to duplicate what he has done, and maybe they only have the theme park aspect, but they don't have the cleanliness or the characters. I'm looking even at the back of your book. Usually, I read books for a living, and so, you look at people on the back of the book, but I'm just admired the fact that all the brands that have endorsed your book are high-end, Boss, Speakers, Mercedes-Benz, Cheesecake Factory, and maybe I can go there for lunch in a few minutes, But
well, it was really wonderful to get these folks to make comments, and quite frankly, a lot of them I've worked with as a consultant, and to this day, even the highest-end organizations are not afraid to look in the mirror and address what they need to do to improve either product quality or service quality.
Why don't you think more people understand that there's always room at the top?
Meaning what, for improvement?
No, that if you become high in it, that you the best. A Bose speaker doesn't go on sale for 99 cents. They don't advertise that. You don't go in Mercedes dealership and want to hackle over a price. I mean, this is the price, and if you can't afford it, God bless you. I mean, why don't more people understand the concept of yes, hi ho, but Disney is a high end product. I mean, what was interesting to me when I went to Disney, I think it was in Florida, it really hit me. I felt like I became a good parent the moment I took my kids to Disney.
Right. And so your question again is, why don't more people aspire to get to the top?
Yes, sir, and realize that when they do so, there's still room, because a lot of people will say, if I am quality or if I am the best, that perhaps I'm going to be competing with somebody. But as you can see, when you are the best at what you do, there's always room for growth and opportunity.
Well, I think the flip side of Disney makes it look easy is that it is a lot of hard work to get to the top and stay there. In fact, there's a well-known quote that Walt used, and many organizations have adopted it, is don't rest on your laurels. And Disney, indeed, fell from its lofty perch in the mid-'80s, and we almost lost the entire company due to an indifference to the voice of the customer and employees. So the real essence of why people don't get to the top, or more importantly, why they don't stay there, is we get a little bit cocky, a little bit big for our britches, and forget that even the basics help world-renowned organizations, such as you mentioned earlier, picking up trash and smiling.
Tell me about Disney U. How should I use this book?
Disney U is a series of lessons that reveal values. I alluded to values earlier as the foundation of any organization, and certainly there are lots of organizations that have read other books about Disney, and it's not that those books are any better or any worse than Disney U, but because of my experience within Disney as an employee, working there for a number of years, I had was granted access to a number of executives with whom I used to work, and they shared with me amazing examples, simple examples that can be replicated by any organization, large or small. And so the reader of Disney was going to come away with multiple examples of how Disney did it and it worked, multiple examples of how Disney did it and it failed. And really what it boils down to in these examples is it's not about the size of the budget or the size of the staff. It's the willingness to step out of one's comfort zone and tread new territory and be creative. In fact, the founder of the Disney U, the man about whom I write, Van France, and he was a brilliant man, one of my mentors at the park, he talked about how so many people blame the budget for a lack of being able to do something, and he said it's not a lack of budget, it's a lack of creativity. I can still picture him saying that.
Tell me about the university itself. Is it like a normal university? Does it have campuses? Give us a basic overview of Disney U.
Well, Disney University is really just the internal employee development function within the company. And yes, there are nice buildings that have evolved over the years for cast members to come as newly hired employees when they're getting their day of orientation, and then they go off into the different divisions to get job-specific information and training, and then likewise supervisors learn how to get promoted and how you manage a staff. And even at Disney Studios, where I also used to work, over the years we've had a variety of programs that expose executives to other divisions within the company so that you get more cross-pollination as opposed to silos. So it's really an overarching philosophy of employee development, not really about the buildings themselves.
We're talking about Disney U, how Disney University develops the world's most engaged, loyal, and customer-centric employees. Let's look at lesson number 1, setting the stage for success, the 4 circumstances of the Disney University. Tell me about that.
Well, you know, the very first page in here, it talks about the values, but what I was really drawn to when I found this memo that Van wrote to the executive committee proposing the Disney University is he said, the trouble with people is that we get hardening of the mental arteries, cirrhosis of the enthusiasm, and arthritis of the imagination. This just gives you a small indication of the creativity of this guy, Van France, and he outlined what it took for the university to survive. And he said the 4 things were innovation. I mentioned this earlier. You got to be willing to take some risks. The next one was organizational support. You have to have unabashed support at the top of the organization, people screaming at the top of their lungs the importance of education and training. And then certainly the next 2 fall in line with that. Education has to be part of the organizational culture. Walt Disney started the trend years and years ago when he brought in Frank Lloyd Wright to the Disney Studios to give lessons to the animators, for crying out loud. And then you have to have, along with, so innovation, you've got organizational support, you have education, and the 4th one is entertain. There's nothing wrong with entertaining and educating at the same time. And Alvin, one of my favorite quotes in the whole book that I have on the front jacket is from Walt Disney, when the subject permits, we let fly with all the satire and gags at our command. Laughter is no enemy to learning. So those 4 fundamentals are what Van France identified as the 4 circumstances that allowed for the Disney University to start and be successful for 50-plus years.
Well, that leads us to, let's skip to like lesson number 3, which
Sure.
says it takes art and science. The attractions don't break down. Snow White never had a bad day. Tell me about that.
Well, this is the essence of maintaining balance. And again, kind of back to our first discussion of organizations will mimic Disney and they'll put together a pretty nice facility, but then what happens is you run out of balance and you have rides that break down or you have employees that get a little bit nasty and testy with each other and with guests. And Disney realizes that by having rides that are fundamentally sound, maybe not the fastest in the world relative to competition, but clean and well-maintained and don't break down, and you have employees that are smiling. And so the idea of Snow White is even if you have a hugely successful park from the standpoint of rides and attractions and parades, but you have an employee, in this case, let's say Snow White, who all of a sudden kind of snaps one day and barks at a child because she's in a bad mood, that will absolutely undermine all of the investment that the organization has made. So by capturing hearts and minds, by having an employee see an executive walk across the park and pick up trash, my employees, my cast members now buy into the idea that, wow, everybody lives this dream, I'm doing it as well. You've captured my mind by telling me about this. You've captured my heart by role-playing it and by modeling it. So it's that balance of hardware and software. In the healthcare industry, it's clinical care. You know how to take care of patients' physical needs, but there's also emotional care. You know how to take care of their emotional needs. And that balance I see oftentimes lacking in organizations.
Let's look at another lesson here. Let's go to lesson 4, gather facts and feelings. What do you mean to walk the park?
Walk the park was something that Walt Disney was a master at doing, and Van France, the man who was the founder of the Disney University, mimicked that. And in this chapter, I talk about how Van actually would take a camera into Disneyland, walk around taking pictures of employees, cast members, and guests, customers. Sometimes he didn't even have film in the camera, but he knew this was a wonderful bridge with which to connect. And my message to a lot of my clients, and the message in the book is, Walt Disney, the founder of a multinational corporation, Van France, and all of the executives in between them always took time to go out and walk into the front lines. So whether you're a factory manager, whether you're an executive and you fly in your private jet to locales where you have offices, the metaphor of walking the park is something that every manager, every executive should do. And I challenge a lot of readers to say, if you're not walking the park, why?
Let's look at one more lesson here. The honeymoon will end. Cinderella Castle and cultural change. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is an example of what happens after a grand opening for any organization. The ramp-up leading to Walt Disney World in 1971 led to a lot of burnout with employees, and that's natural with any major startup. And what happened was the turnover rate spiked to over 80% in an industry that it's around 55% average. So even a organization like Disney can have dark days, and the message of this chapter is how do you turn the ship around? And one of the examples in this chapter is how the president of the Outdoor Recreation Division, Dick Nunes, who was another brilliant man in this whole Disney U Foundation, suggested that the executives of the company gather in the Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World to have a series of meetings to discuss how this whole castle, how this whole foundation around them was burning to the ground, and they needed to do something about it. So it's really, Alvin, about the symbol of the organization, and there's nothing more powerful than Cinderella Castle as a symbol of the organization. And every day when these executives would climb these rickety old stairs to get to this nondescript room to talk about the crisis around them, that reinforced in their mind the urgency of the situation. And so in this chapter, I ask the reader to think about what is the symbol of your organization, your store, your company, and are you fully leveraging it, especially during crisis times?
We're talking about Disney U. This particular chat and interview will be featured at dralvin.com, the Business of Wisdom, where world leaders and thinkers come to chat. It also will be featured on Facebook at Dr. Alvin. Also, it will be featured on Twitter at Dr. Alvin Jones. We discover wisdom one brilliant mind at a time. Doug, give me a final thought. Make sure I have the takeaway, and then let me know about any website, Facebook, etc., to get a copy of Disney U.
The lessons of Disney U are for anyone, and it's absolutely not relegated to the size of the staff or the size of the budget. So whether it's a mom-and-a-pop organization or a multinational corporation with offices worldwide, the values that are presented in Disney U will absolutely form the foundation for any organization to aspire to greater service, greater friendliness, and a healthier bottom line, quite frankly. This book is doing very well. It just came out last month. It's on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. It's in local bookstores. My website is www.DougLipp.com, DOUGLIPP. And I'm just really pleased that I was able to write about such iconic Disney figures and finally share some messages that have never been shared before with the public.
Well, we appreciate you doing so. This is a great addition to my business section of my library. I thank God for you, sir, and you continue to have a remarkable and amazing day, okay?
You too. Thank you very much.